Good morning. I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things to know this Tuesday. Number 1, the latest immigration crackdown.
The Trump administration has announced a new rule making it harder for immigrants to get green cards if they rely on public assistance.
Immigration advocates are planning to sue, calling the policy racially motivated. Number 2, a major scare at a veterans hospital in Chicago.
Witnesses say a man walked up to the building with an assault weapon and started shooting. Police say he also fired shots inside the facility. Officers arrested him within 30 seconds.
No one was hit, and no word yet why the man opened fire. It is not believed that he was a veteran.
On to number 3, new questions about the moments before accused child molester Jeffrey Epstein's death in a jail.
The Associated Press reports one of the guards assigned to watch Epstein was not a regular correctional officer. Sources say at the urging of his lawyers, Epstein was taken off suicide watch 2 weeks ago.
ABC News has learned it's unlikely that there is surveillance video of the moment of his death.
And we head to Cape Cod, Massachusetts for number 4, where there is a booming business, all thanks to the shark sightings off the coast.
Cape Cod has reported more than 150 sightings this summer, including this sighting just a few days ago. Look at that big shark. And now the demand for shark tours is skyrocketing. One luxury inn is offering 2-hour shark tours that could cost $2,500.
Meanwhile, shark-related clothing is flying off shelves. One store on Cape Cod is now selling $50,000 worth of shark attire each week.
And finally, number 5, someone cashing in on the Pokemon craze.
We're just 3 months away from Nintendo's debut of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and now a first edition set of Pokemon trading cards has sold at auction for $107,000. They were among the first cards printed in English 20 years ago. So ways to make money. Sharks, Pokemon. Keep that in mind.
Pikachu. That's a lot of dough for Pokemon.
A whole bunch, $107,000. So, I mean, right away, that brings us to our question of the day. What did you collect, you know, back in the day, even recently, that you think may or may not be worth a whole lot of money? Mine would be Beanie Babies.
Oh, yeah. My He-Man action figures. Action figures.
There are multiple ones?
No, just one He-Man. I don't think. Oh, and Skeletor. He-Man, he didn't have any wardrobe
So tell
changes.
us yours in the comments or tweet us at ABC News Live.
Please do.
Yeah. But now let's get to that big story, a sweeping crackdown on legal immigration. The Trump administration announcing a restrictive new rule that could deny green cards to hundreds of thousands of people for being too poor.
So this new policy limits who is allowed to legally enter and stay in the United States based on his or her need for public assistance. So let's bring in ABC's Mona co-star Abdi. She's there in Washington. Mona, good morning.
Good morning, Kenneth, and good morning to you, Janae. The president has long pushed for a merit-based immigration system and expressed frustration about people coming from countries that he described in vulgar terms. Now, this new rule would allow him to do just that. The White House announcing its latest crackdown on immigration. This time, the sweeping new changes targeting immigrants legally in the United States.
Throughout our history, self-reliance has been a core principle in America.
Starting in October, the Trump administration's new public charge rule would make it harder for immigrants who receive or even qualify to receive certain government benefits like Medicaid, food stamps, or government housing assistance to receive a green card.
Which will now screen and more effectively for the possibility that people may become dependent on the government in the future.
Acting Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Ken Cuccinelli, explained the rule has been around for some time, but will now have a, quote, more meaningful effect.
Is that sentiment, give us you're tired, you're poor, still operative in the United States?
Well, I'm certainly not prepared to take anything down off the Statue of Liberty.
Over 500,000 people annually apply for green cards, and now the large majority are at risk of being denied under these new standards. The new regulations will not apply to asylum seekers or refugees. The attorneys general of California and New York, along with immigration advocacy groups, have already vowed to sue. Several 2020 Democratic candidates like Julian Castro say this unfairly targets lower-income immigrants, particularly of color. Castro on MSNBC.
It's one consistent show of a president who is a racist and basically wants a whiter, wealthier nation.
And the new public charge rule could also have a destabilizing effect on several major industries, including hospitality, food services, and even construction. It can also affect education and health services as well.
And Mona, what makes this rule different from the public charge policies of previous administrations?
Well, Janae and Kenneth, you guys remember Cuccinelli did say that this was going to have a more meaningful effect, meaning that they have redefined the term public charge to include people who are more likely than not to receive public benefits. That means you don't have to be even receiving public benefits, but if you qualify, then you could be categorized as such. And they also broadened those benefits to include Medicaid and food assistance programs, which wasn't the case under the Obama and Clinton administrations.
So more widespread.
Right. And again, this rule expected to face a swift legal challenge there in court. Mona Kosar-Abdi in Washington, thank you.
And meanwhile, the Trump administration has also announced major changes to the Endangered Species Act, weakening protections for threatened wildlife.
The new rules set to take effect next month would make it easier to remove species from the endangered list and make it harder to consider the effects of climate change on plants and animals. The changes could clear the way for new mining, oil, and gas drilling. Legal challenges also expected.
And overnight, we've learned new information about the jail where accused child molester Jeffrey Epstein died. His apparent suicide behind bars has sparked growing outrage and has prompted the Attorney General to make a new promise.
This morning, new questions about the moments before Jeffrey Epstein's death in jail. The Associated Press reports one of the guards assigned to watch Epstein was not a regular correctional officer.
We are now learning of serious irregularities at this facility that are deeply concerning and demand a thorough investigation.
Sources say at the urging of his lawyers, Epstein was taken off suicide watch 2 weeks ago. ABC News has learned it is unlikely that there is surveillance video of the moment of his death. This image, taken moments after he was found in his cell, shows emergency crews trying to revive him. A source says guards at the Metropolitan Correctional Center broke protocol by not checking on him every 30 minutes. Sources describe the staffing levels at the jail as deplorable, with more than 30 staff positions vacant. Meanwhile, in the Caribbean, FBI agents have conducted a new search of Epstein's private island, looking for evidence against potential co-conspirators as we learn more about longtime Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who's been accused of recruiting underage girls like Virginia Goffrey to act as sex slaves for him and other men.
The training started immediately. Give Jeffrey what he wants. A lot of this training came from Ghislaine herself.
In deposition testimony from recently unsealed documents, Goffrey says she was directed to have sex with several powerful men, like former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, former Maine Senator George Mitchell, and Prince Andrew. All of the men deny the allegations. Conchita Sarnoff, an advocate for victims of sex trafficking, wrote a book about Epstein and says she knew Maxwell socially.
According to Virginia's filings, she would teach the underage girls how to behave, how to act, how to dress, how to eat properly. I think those girls were so fearful of Ghislaine, A, because she was much older than they were, and she, of course, lived with Epstein, and she had a relationship with Epstein. Whatever that relationship was, it clearly was a close relationship.
Maxwell has denied all allegations and has not been charged with any crime.
Attorney General William Barr says any co-conspirators in the Epstein case, quote, should not rest easy, and he says the victims deserve justice and they will get it.
Checking more top stories, a California Highway Patrol officer has been shot and killed during a traffic stop in Riverside. Investigators say the 34-year-old officer was preparing to impound the suspect's vehicle. The suspect died in a shootout with responding officers.
A Pennsylvania teen who just won $3 million, a prize at a video game championship, is seeing a downside to that fame. 16-year-old Kyle Gearsdorf, who we told you about recently, was swatted while live streaming a session of Fortnite. Someone called police pretending to be Kyle and claimed he just killed his father. When the SWAT team responded, Kyle's father answered the door, was able to quickly clear up that situation. But you know, these swatting incidents, not only are they extremely dangerous, but take so many resources for something that's not real.
They do. And a warning for pet owners after 3 dogs died because they took a swim in a pond. The dogs were poisoned by blue-green algae in Wilmington, North Carolina, but the algae is a common sight across the South. Health officials say dogs are especially vulnerable to the algae's toxins, which can cause seizures. The owner says she had no idea.
People need to know about this. Like I said, if we had any clue that this was a thing, they would have never come. I had no idea. And then once we got to the emergency vet last night, they also weren't sure.
The toxins attack the dog's nervous system. Experts say if a pet appears to stumble or collapses after being in the water, find help right away.
And in Seattle, a car crashed through a window of an LA fitness center and landed in the swimming pool. Authorities say the 69-year-old driver hit the gas pedal instead of the brake. 3 people were in the pool, but no one was hurt. One of them helped the driver get out of the car. No charges are expected. And in Tennessee, a woman who's just turned 100 is offering her advice for a long life.
The grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Margaret Ruth Jenkins look forward to their visits because Grandma is pretty funny. She just turned 100 years old, and she's still cracking them up. It's obvious she's enjoying life.
Well, it's the best day of my life, but I don't believe I'm 100 yet. I don't feel like it. I don't believe I am. I can't believe it. But I am. I thank the Lord every day. He's leaving me here for some reason.
Love it. Mrs. Jenkins says she never drank, smoked, cursed, or chewed tobacco.
And may every day be the best day of her life.
Love it.
Well, coming up, the new outrage over American Airlines coming from the parents of a group of disabled children traveling alone.
What they say their kids endured during a 13-hour flight delay. After this.
All right, welcome back. Outrage is growing against American Airlines among parents of a group of disabled children whose flight home from a special camp was delayed 13 hours.
Those parents say they were never notified of that delay and their kids were not properly fed or given their medication during that unscheduled overnight delay. This morning, parents from Oregon and Washington State are sharing their outrage. Their 9 children with a disorder that causes tumors were returning home from a special camp in Virginia. But in Charlotte, trouble. The American Airlines flight stuck on the tarmac for 5 hours. No meal provided to the kids.
Part of our airline fee was a meal on the plane. They hadn't been fed. The kids were hungry. They had been sitting there for hours.
Parents say their kids were brought back to the terminal and placed in a room for unsupervised children to wait overnight.
I was walking too slow because my knees were stiff. So they put me on a wheelchair because I was going too slow even though I was going at my fastest. And they never gave us our meds. They weren't willing to. And I had a headache.
Families also say many of the kids were forced to check their carry-on bags, leaving them without their medications.
They went and just took it upon themselves to go in the other kids' backpacks and find the weekly camp list of their meds and find out what meds they needed, and they're playing nurses now at 14.
The children claimed they had limited access to a bathroom and were given only crackers and soda. Parents say they were not contacted by American Airlines, which is blaming the delay on a mechanical issue. A spokesperson said in a statement, quote, "Our team is in the process of reaching out to the families involved and sincerely apologizes for this travel experience. We will be reviewing with our teams internally to understand how we can do better next time."
The kids that are sitting here are reflecting signs of trauma and PTSD. If their policy is that you pay $300 and some odd from an unaccompanied minor fee, that all that is just a name on a sheet, and they could care less what happens with 9 chronically ill children, then they need to change their policy.
Obviously a traumatic situation for those kids, and the parents were poorly exploring their legal options.
Well, protests in Hong Kong continued overnight as one of the world's busiest airports canceling all flights. Let's go across the pond to Julia McFarlane in the London Bureau for the very latest.
Right now, whilst we've seen Hong Kong hitting the streets in protests over the weekend for 10 consecutive weeks now, right now this is the 5th day of ongoing protests. So this has been spilling on since over the weekend. Chief Executive Carrie Lam, there was quite a fraught press conference earlier today where she was sparring with reporters. She refused to answer, in particular, this question. One reporter put to her, "Do you have the autonomy to withdraw this bill?" Remember this contentious extradition bill, which is what started this crisis in the first place. This reporter said, do you have the autonomy to withdraw it, or does China prevent you from doing so, or is this just a point of political pride for you? She refused repeatedly to answer the question. This crisis continues to escalate.
Those are some good questions there that need to be answered. National Security Advisor John Bolton is in London as Britain's new prime minister is trying to work out a deal, we know, to exit the European Union. But the U.S. is hoping Brexit will mean a better trade deal.
Guys, this is really interesting because just to sum up, we've seen a number of really high-level British-American meetings since the new Boris Johnson administration came to power. Firstly, we had the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab meeting with President Trump, the Vice President, and all the top brass of U.S. government officials in Washington last week. It took much longer than that for his predecessor to meet with high-level U.S. officials, and he himself had not had a one-on-one with President Trump yet. At the moment, National Security Advisor John Bolton is in the UK, and he's been telling reporters that the US is very keen to set up a number of mini trade deals to agree on as soon as the UK leaves the EU. So some really helpful words from the Americans. But, of course, this is a very transactional relationship. The Americans want something from the Brits in return. They have been speaking on Huawei. The Americans want the Brits to take a stronger stance against Huawei, and Iran as well. At the moment, the Brits are with the Europeans on trying to keep the deal open. The Americans want the Brits to come over to their side. So this is really interesting. Vice President Mike Pence will be in London next month. And of course, President Trump and Boris, they spoke on the phone yesterday discussing all these issues. So a new sort of bromance between these administrations. How long will that last, I wonder?
Yeah, very interesting. And in Royal News, Julia, a musical about the late Princess of Wales is coming to Broadway. What do we know about Diana the musical?
Right, so this new play will be hitting Broadway soon, and it's going to concentrate on the life of Diana. It's going to take you through the emotional, tumultuous period during Charles's affair, Diana's storm with the media, and her immense global fame before her death back in 1997. Now, it's just the question I think is on everyone's minds is how are William and Harry going to feel about this, because of course the two princes have been very, very guarded and very reluctant to be as open with the media as Princess Diana, and of course all those parallels between Diana and Meghan being thrust into the spotlight. But time will tell. I wonder who would play Diana?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a long list of beautiful women out there who could play the iconic Princess Di, so we will see. Hey, Julia, thank you so much, friend. Good to see you.
Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.
Hey, let's check our notifications now, starting with pumpkin spice lattes.
Yeah, the kids are just barely getting back to school, but we're already talking about fall things. The delicious drink, August 27th, is the big day for Starbucks. Even before that, August 21st, the big day for Dunkin', so you can get your fall started real early.
You know, I'm not a fan of the lattes.
Me either, but pumpkin bread?
Oh, now that.
Or pumpkin muffins? I am all
yeah,
about.
now you're talking.
Yeah.
Also, what are those little pumpkin whoopie pies? You ever had those before? The whoopie pies?
No, I don't eat things like that.
You actually would. I know what you eat.
The whoopie
You
pies.
would destroy them. Also, question of the day, have you ever had a whoopie pie?
Oh my gosh.
Tweet us, let us know. People in Pennsylvania, Dutch, Quaker, Mennonite, Amish area, they definitely know it.
And from eating lots of whoopie pies to eating lots of pasta, Olive Garden is announcing it has a lifetime pasta pass, $500.
Yeah, about $500.
Only about 50 of
so
them.
they're still doing that whole big pasta.
Yeah, that's
thing
$100.
Yeah, but then you can, I think for a certain percentage or small amount, just a few lucky ones, you can get a lifetime pass of pasta. So $500 for like a gazillion dollars of pasta.
A life full of pasta-bilities, as the little things was
I think you just came up with that. I was like, she's just taking credit for that.
Yep.
Hey, next up, a skunk in need of some help finds a friend and a police officer who helped get a cup unstuck from its head.
You got a friend in me.
Through that coat over there, they got that's it could be a stinky job there.
Right, and Kenneth, you got a skunk story, right?
Oh, I actually do. You're like,
Okay,
just go ahead and tell it. Just tell the skunk story. I was a kid, and down there in the country of South Carolina, the great state of South Carolina, my mom, we were in the car down a country road with a relative, and the relative said, "Oh, I think that's a dog on the side of the road. We should go get the dog." We thought it was like a puppy. So we pull over on the country road, jump out, and so they get closer and closer and see that white stripe on the back of it. They take off running. The skunk is chasing them. They jump in the car.
Oh, my God.
I'm screaming. I'm like 8 years old or something like that. It was not a pet. It was a skunk.
Shout out to the great state of South Carolina.
We love pulling over for things on the in the road. You know, that's how you find the roadkill, the vittles.
Shout out to the great state of South Carolina. Going viral this morning, this is incredible. Amy Stevens discovered that when she opens her oven, it squeaks to the same melody as Yeah, Usher's hit song from 2004.
And like any mom, she used that information to embarrass her daughter. Take a look.
We cannot get enough of this video.
Break out of the song.
Yes.
Yeah.
The kind of mom I aspire to be. That is incredible.
Since it was posted, the tweet has more than 400,000 retweets and more than 1.3 million likes.
So good. It's so good.
Overnight, we were in our editorial meeting here on the show, and we have a producer who's a little bit of a snob when it comes to and a snob when it comes to music. And I was like, "Oh, do you know the lyrics for Usher's Yeah?" And I was like, "It goes, yeah, 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 yeah."
Those are the lyrics,
Those
right?
are the lyrics.
And finally, Seattle has a new superhero. She is the bus lane traffic avenger.
This woman, her name is Erin. She jumped in to force cars out of the bus-only lane as she swore at drivers and ushered them out of the lane. Commuters waiting at the bus stop clapped and cheered her on. So her actions allowed a line of buses to finally get through and pick up passengers.
She's being hailed as a hero on social media, but some people say she should stay in her own lane and out of bus traffic.
You know what? I'm okay with this because at first I thought the cars would be speeding through and there's a danger of her getting hit. But no, the traffic's already backed up. People are going slowly. She's like, "Get out of the bus-only lane."
Yeah, I get it. Except the whole swearing part. I don't know. It's like, it's actually, I don't agree with the cars being in the bus lane, but it's actually kind of obnoxious.
And the way she's doing it.
It's just very...
Like, it's not what she did, it was the way.
Yeah, right?
There you go.
Well, coming up, a retiring FBI agent surprised by a blast from the past.
The baby he rescued as a young agent, now a U.S. Marine. More after this.
Here's what to watch out for today. President Trump will visit the construction site of a multi-billion-dollar ethane cracker plant owned by Shell Oil in Beaver County, Pennsylvania. The plant will turn natural gas into ethylene, which is used to make plastics. It's reportedly expected to bring about 600 permanent jobs to the region, but climate activists say it would pollute the air with toxic chemicals.
Lawmakers in Tennessee are considering one of the nation's strictest abortion bans, even as similar laws have been struck down in court. A hearing today will include testimony from the ACLU and the National Women's Law Center.
Democratic candidates for president are on the trail as Bernie Sanders holds a town hall in New Hampshire. Mayor Pete Buttigieg takes his turn on the soapbox at the Iowa State Fair. Julian Castro holds a town hall in Des Moines, Iowa tonight, and Elizabeth Warren will take questions from Working Family Party members in a live-streamed interview. You can watch those events right here on ABC News Live.
And it's Elvis Week in Memphis, and Graceland is holding an auction of memorabilia, including a tuxedo from the 1969 film The Trouble with Girls, a diamond ring the King gave to musician J.D. Sumner, and more.
Plus, don't forget to tune in to the Debrief for an update on all our top stories and the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics.
Should we tell Elvis there's no longer problems with girls?
I've been to Graceland. Is that so random?
That's pretty random.
Yeah.
What'd you think of it?
I just remember this green shag carpet, I believe.
Oh.
Finally this morning, we're hearing the touching story of an FBI agent who came into the life of a kidnapped baby boy.
That agent is now retiring, and for his retirement party, he was presented with this very special surprise. Gabriella Pagan of our station in Knoxville, Tennessee, has the story.
For me, it was all brand new, but this is the stories you hear about the FBI, that we're going out there working kidnapping cases and trying to find the kidnapped person, the victim. So I was very excited about being part of it.
Agent Sowers was a young agent, barely 2 months in the field, when he was working a lead on that kidnapping, interviewing someone who had been pulled over, deciding to take a look at the suspect's house.
She still had not confessed to kidnapping the baby. In her house, we found some indications that maybe she was part of the kidnapping. We went and talked to her 13-year-old stepdaughter. The 13-year-old stepdaughter immediately started crying and said that she didn't know where the baby was at.
Now knowing they had the right person, Sowers hopped in a police car to be taken to where the kidnapped baby was being held.
It's interesting, over my 22-year career, when people ask me highlights of my career, I would always mention this, that I pulled a baby out of a box, but never really focused on it because it was just one of the things that we do.
Until it came time for retirement, and Sowers' daughters began looking for that baby from the box, who is now a corporal with the United States Marine Corps.
I did not know it at all. I wanted something very simple. I asked for coffee and donuts.
So we thought this would be a pretty special end to your career, for you to hear a little bit about him and for you to actually see a picture of him. But oh, by the way, he's actually here to thank you today. So Troy Sowers, I would like to introduce you to Corporal Stuart Rimmer.
Very stoic. Like, I thought he was gonna cry, but he kept it in there. Just a big old thank you for everything that he's done, and without him, I wouldn't be where I am today, a United States Marine.
All right, our thanks to Gabriella Pagan of that station. There's such a great story.
So cool that the fact that he could see him after all these years, and he changed the course of his life. And special thanks and thank you for your service to both that law enforcement officer who's retiring there, and also the Marine.
Right.
Who's serving this country.
Incredible to see how, really what a lasting impact people in those jobs can have. So that is it from us on this Tuesday.
Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow.